Picture yourself 15,000 years ago. You have eaten. The fire is warm. The smoke smells like pine and animal fat. Your children are asleep. The night is long. There's nothing to do. And you feel something strange in your chest. Restless, dull, hungry without being hungry. That feeling is boredom. Most people assume your ancestors were too busy surviving to feel it. And the real answer is far stranger than you'd expect. Because boredom is not a modern disease. It is the engine that built every culture you have ever known. The first piece of the puzzle is time. Specifically, how much of it your ancestors actually had on their hands. In 2010, anthropologist Frank Marlowe at Harvard published a decade of fieldwork with the Hadza, a hunter-gatherer society in northern Tanzania. He measured every minute of their day. The results contradict everything you have probably been told about ancient life. Your ancestors were not running for their lives from sunrise to sunset. The Hadza work on average 4 to 6 hours a day. The men hunt. The women forage for tubers and berries. By mid-afternoon, the calories are in. The food is shared out. The day's labor is over, and the rest of their day belongs to them. That leaves them 10 hours of waking time every day. Imagine for a second your day with that much unscheduled space in it. So what fills it? Children chase each other through the grass. Old men nap in the shade. Women braid each other's hair while they talk. Someone tells a joke that everyone has heard before, and they laugh anyway. The afternoon stretches out. The fire gets lit. The day keeps going with nothing in it that has to be done. These are not unusual people. The Jew Huansi in Botswana, the Ashe in Paraguay, the Mbuti in the Congo. The same pattern shows up wherever anthropologists look. The American anthropologist Marshall Salins called it the original affluent society. Your ancestors were not starving. They were not exhausted. They had time. A lot of it, more than you have. So what did they do with all those hours? Some of it went to processing food, some to making tools, some to talking. But after the cooking was done and the tools were sharp and the children were finally asleep, your ancestors sat by the fire. They stared at the flames. They felt the slow weight of nothing to do. They got bored. The same way you get bored. The same network of brain regions that goes restless inside your skull right now lit up inside theirs 40,000 years ago. And then something interesting happened. But here's what's fascinating. Because boredom is not a passive state. When your brain has no task in front of it, it does not go quiet. It does the opposite. In 2001, neuroscientist Marcus Rachel at Washington University in St. Louis published a paper in PNAS that mapped what your brain does when it has nothing to do. He found a specific network of regions that activated only when the subject was at rest. He called it the default mode network. You have one. You are running it right now, between sentences, when your attention drifts. The default mode network is where you imagine the future. It is where you replay conversations. It is where you connect ideas that have nothing to do with each other. It is where new things come from. And in a real way, it is where you come from, when you're not paying attention to anything else. When neuroscientists watch this network on a brain scanner, they see your prefrontal cortex, your hippocampus, and your visual centers all firing together with no input from outside. It is your whole brain looking for patterns in nothing. This is what daydreaming actually is. This is what mind wandering is, and this is where every creative thought you have ever had came from. In 2014, psychologist Sandy Mann at the University of Central Lancashire ran a clean experiment. She had subjects copy numbers out of a phone book for 15 minutes, the kind of work you would pay to escape, boring work. Then she gave them a creativity task. Come up with as many uses as you can for 2 paper cups. The bored group beat the control group on creativity, not by a small margin, by a wide one. Boredom had pushed their minds into the corner where the best ideas live. Boredom does not block creativity. It produces it. The discomfort you feel when there's nothing to do is the pressure that pushes your mind toward novelty. So when your ancestors sat by their fires with 10 unaccounted hours and nothing pressing in front of them, their default mode networks went to work. The same network you have, the same one that nags at you in the quiet seconds between tasks. And what they made next is what we now call human civilization. But that is only part of the story. And honestly, what they did with that boredom is stranger than you would expect. In 2008, archaeologist Nicholas Conrad at the University of Tübingen pulled a small fragment of bone out of the floor of Hohlefels Cave in southern Germany. He published the find in Nature. It was a flute, carved from the wing bone of a griffin vulture, with 5 finger holes. It was 40,000 years old. Someone with the same brain you have, sitting in the dark, after the meat was eaten and the children were quiet, picked up a dead bird's bone and made it sing. They did it because they had nothing else to do. They did it because their default mode network, the one inside your head right now, would not let them stay still. That is what boredom built, the oldest known musical instrument on Earth. And it kept going. In a cave in Sulawesi, Indonesia, hundreds of human handprints stenciled in red ochre stare back at archaeologists. The oldest is 45,000 years old. Someone whose hand looked exactly like yours pressed their palm against rock and blew pigment around it, for no reason you can name, just to leave a mark, just because they were bored and the wall was there. The same impulse that makes you doodle on a napkin during a long meeting. In southern France, in a cave called Chauvet, archaeologist Jean Clot and his team documented hundreds of paintings dating back 36,000 years. Woolly rhinoceros, cave lions, mammoths. The cave was too far from daylight to live in. Nobody hunted there. Nobody slept there. People walked into the dark with torches, painted the walls, and walked back out. Then, generations later, somebody else came back and painted on top of the first paintings. The site was used and reused for at least 7,000 years. There was no reward for any of it. Your ancestors came because the wall was empty, and because they were bored, and because they could. In 1991, hikers in the Alps found the body of a 5,000-year-old man frozen into a glacier. They called him Ötzi. When researchers examined him, they counted 61 tattoos cut into his skin, charcoal rubbed into open wounds. Some sat over arthritic joints. Most did not. Most were just decoration. Your ancestor bled himself, on purpose, for hours, to make patterns nobody asked him to make. In southern Siberia, in burial mounds called Pazyryk, dating to 2,400 years ago, archaeologists found bronze cauldrons, hemp seed, and small wooden frames built for inhaling cannabis smoke. Pipes the size of your hand. Your ancestors got high. They got high on purpose. They built specific equipment for it, and they took the equipment with them into the grave in case they needed it on the other side. And in 2014, anthropologist Polly Wiesner at the University of Utah published a study in PNAS that recorded years of conversations among the Jeju/Hwansi people of Botswana. During the day, when there was work to do, the talk was practical. 81% of what they said at night was stories. Hours of stories. Every night. The same kind of stories you binge watch now. Tattoos, music, handprints, smoke, stories. None of these things keep you alive. They are what your bored mind makes when you finally let it. And here's the part nobody talks about. In 2014, social psychologist Timothy Wilson at the University of Virginia published a study in Science that you should know about. He asked subjects to sit alone in a room for 15 minutes with nothing but their thoughts. No phone, no book, no window. The only object in the room was a button that, if pressed, would deliver a painful electric shock to the subject's ankle. 67% of the men in the study shocked themselves rather than sit quietly with their thoughts. A quarter of the women did the same. The result was so striking that Wilson's team replicated the study with different subjects in different rooms with different setups. Each version produced the same outcome. Sitting alone with your own mind for 15 minutes is, for most modern adults, worse than physical pain. The default mode network, the same network that built music and tattoos and stories, the one inside your head right now. It became unbearable for them in 15 minutes. Try it tonight. Sit on the edge of your bed for 15 minutes with no phone, no book, no music, just you and your own thoughts. See how long you last. Most modern adults never enter that state at all anymore. Your phone fills every gap. The line at the coffee shop, the walk between meetings, the minute before sleep. There's no boredom in your day because there is no boredom-shaped silence left. And the cost is the network itself. The thing that built civilization atrophied from disuse. Your default mode is starving. The part of your brain that made everything worth making is being run on idle and starved of the fuel it needs. So tonight, when the work is done and the noise stops, and your day comes to a halt, you may feel that old feeling again. Restless, dull, hungry without being hungry. The same feeling your ancestors felt 15,000 years ago in the firelight when there was nothing to do. Your ancestors knew exactly what to do with it. You probably do not. They tattooed themselves. They painted walls. They carved bone into music. They told stories until morning. They invented gods. They made you, and you reach for your phone.